What is going on, y'all? My name is John, and this is Facemask Fantasy, bringing you new fantasy content every day right here on this channel. So if you have not subscribed already, please hit that button. And before I get into it, I just got to let y'all know that we are rolling out live streams. We have a live stream every Sunday at 10 a.m. to go over start-sit questions pre-kickoff, and we have a stream every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. to go over everything that happened in last week's games and to go over waiver options before the waiver deadline early Wednesday morning. So tune in with us every Sunday and every Tuesday throughout the season, and hopefully we can help you win your fantasy leagues. But without further ado, let's get into some fantasy talk. So this being a fantasy channel, we got to react to this despite the very unfortunate situation that led to unnecessary loss of life. What does the significant, now vacated Henry Rugg target share mean for the other starting wide receivers on this team? Primarily, Bryan Edwards. Edwards was one of my favorite wide receivers to come out of college last year, and I know he disappointed in year one, only catching 11 balls for 193 yards and a touchdown over 12 games, and he has seemingly underperformed through 8 weeks in his second NFL season, having only caught 18 receptions for 346 yards and a touchdown through 8 games thus far. This was supposed to be his year. I predicted as such right here on this channel. In the early part of his career, he was comped to a young Davante Adams in the making by Carr himself, who played with Davante Adams in college before he blossomed into the wide receiver he is with Rodgers. But he saw glimpses of what Adams could be. He knows what that's like, and he's been saying for a year now that Edwards possesses that kind of upside at wide receiver. And this past offseason, they lost Nelson Agholor to free agency. They tried to bring in John Brown, but he was released. All signs pointed up for Bryan Edwards throughout the entire offseason. He was supposed to turn into mini Davante, and it just hasn't happened thus far. Through 8 games for Las Vegas, it's been the Hunter Renfrow, Darren Waller, Henry Ruggs show. But now I expect it to be the Hunter Renfrow, Darren Waller, Bryan Edwards show out of pure necessity. The Raiders are 11th in pass plays per game in the NFL with 38 pass attempts per game on average. Ruggs had a 69.3 snap share through 8 games and had played 99 snaps in the slot this season. He had a 31.3 slot snap rate. A large portion of those slot snaps are going to be going to Renfrow, so Renfrow has to move up everybody's rankings a little bit. Some of those slot targets should be sent Darren Waller's way as well, but he was already at the top of most people's rankings despite only being the TE8 on the year. He'll continue to be a high-end TE1 regardless. Slot snaps aside, Ruggs was 22nd in the league in air yards with 618. His average target distance was 17.2, which is second in the league. He had only received 1 red zone reception. He had an 18.5 overall target rate in this offense as the starting receiver, which ranked 71st in the league before obviously getting released. So he wasn't targeted often, usually only downfield. But despite the second highest average target distance, he was only 22nd in the league in air yards. Speaks to not being targeted that much. And when you look at his targets per game, 5.14 targets per game on average. We've established 1/3 of those roughly 5 snaps are going to be going to the slot receivers. That's 1.7 targets per game to be split between Waller and Renfrow, and obviously Kenyon Drake is going to be involved in there as well as one of those players that should be catching balls close to the line of scrimmage. But that leaves, by the numbers, 3.4 targets going downfield, and those should be split between Zay Jones and Bryan Edwards with an edge to Edwards. So I expect Edwards to see 2 more targets on average a game. Edwards has been averaging 4.4 targets a game. He should see more like 6 to 7 targets per game on average. His yards per reception is 19.2, and Ruggs's was 19.5. They won at similar parts of the field. Edwards should get all the deep targets in this offense moving forward. He has a catchable target rate of 76.5. If he's getting roughly 6 to 7 targets moving forward, let's say 6.5, and comes down with 75% of those targets, as Carr has a 76.5 catchable target rate, with an average yards per reception of his current average 19.2, which would leave him to have, based on what he's been averaging thus far in the season, 4.8 receptions for 92.16 yards. That would be his average stat line moving forward, not accounting for opponent. I would guess his TD rate would still be low, considering Henry Ruggs was only targeted once in the red zone. Bryan Edwards had 3 targets in the red zone, so if you give him 1 more, maybe he scores 1 more touchdown on the year. But with 4.8 receptions for 92 yards a game, that's high-end wide receiver 3, low-end wide receiver 2 work on any given week. And if he gets the touchdown, that's high-end wide receiver 2 numbers. When I first started looking at these numbers, I was thinking, well, Ruggs wasn't getting a ton of work to begin with, 5.14 targets a game. Not great considering the work gets split between multiple players with a more dominant target share thus far through the season than Edwards. But considering where the targets were coming from Ruggs, mostly downfield. And the downfield competition for targets in this offense is really only Zay Jones and somebody they just signed kid named Dylan Stoner, who I've never heard of before in my life. And considering the yards per reception that Edwards has been providing through 7 games, I came away much higher on Edwards than originally thought. Even though he's still not a great bet for red zone work in this offense, as I already said, with mid-tier wide receiver 2 upside for the rest of the season, is somebody I want to be investing in. The Raiders selected him out of South Carolina with the 81st overall pick in the 2020 NFL Draft. He's 6'3", 212 pounds. He finished with the 3rd most receptions and the 4th most receiving yards in the SEC ever recorded. He has the youngest breakout age ever recorded, 17.8, and he broke out against SEC competition as a 17-year-old. That's literally unheard of. No one has ever done that before. Some have come close. DeAndre Hopkins had a breakout age of 18.2. Amari Cooper did as well. Sammy Watkins, who at one time was thought of to be one of the best wide receiver prospects of our generation before foot injuries derailed his career, he also had a breakout age of 18.2. Keenan Allen had a breakout age of 18.4, as did DJ Moore and Robert Woods. It's not a perfect metric for gauging how good a prospect will be in the pros, but a 17-year-old true freshman winning against older players at a point in a human being's physical development when a year or two can be a massive difference, it's a lot more meaningful than a 22-year-old redshirt senior producing against younger players. And due to him now being pretty much their entire future a wide receiver moving forward, the future is super bright for Bryan Edwards. In season long, I'd expect high-end wide receiver 3 value with the possibility for him to grow into wide receiver 2 value moving forward. In Dynasty, I really do still expect him to grow into at least a low-end wide receiver 2 for the rest of his career. Waller is there for the long haul. Both Waller and Edwards are signed through 2023. Zay Jones is a free agent next year. They should bring in more wide receiver talent through the draft to replace Ruggs, but Edwards should be a fixture of their offense as a high upside wide receiver that makes the most out of a minimal target share based on where he wins and how he wins on the field. And honestly, Derek Carr is one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the NFL. Through 7 games played, he's averaging 324.1 yards per game, 2nd in the NFL right now. He has a completion percentage of 67.7, 11th in the league right now, and he has an average air yards per completion of 6.7, which is tied for 4th. He's really underrated. So I think the target share that is vacated by the release of Henry Ruggs, while minimal and while at first glance is going to be split up between too many players to really quantify a significant boost in value for anybody in this offense. I think Bryan Edwards is different. I think we can quantifiably say, when looking at where he wins on the field and the numbers that he's put up thus far this season, and the 1 to 2 targets that should be added on to his workload now that Henry Ruggs is out of the picture, bode really well for his future. But what do you guys think about Bryan Edwards moving forward? Do you guys agree? Do you guys see high-end wide receiver 3 value with the potential for wide receiver 2 value moving forward? Put your thoughts in the comment section below. My name is John with Facemask Fantasy, bringing you new fantasy content every day right here on this channel. So if you have not subscribed already, please hit that button. Thank you for listening and have a great day.